Building a body that looks balanced, performs well, and stays injury-free is not something that happens by accident. It requires a structured approach, one where every muscle group receives the right amount of attention across the week, where rest is built in deliberately rather than taken out of exhaustion, where progression is measured and intentional rather than random. The plan laid out here is designed to give you exactly that. Covers all 7 days of the week, distributes the training load intelligently, and ensures that by the time you complete a full cycle, you've hit every major muscle group with enough volume and intensity to stimulate real growth and real strength improvement. Before getting into the specific days, it is worth spending a moment on the philosophy behind this kind of structured weekly planning. Many people who train regularly fall into one of two traps. The first is training the same muscles over and over because they enjoy working them, which almost always means the chest and arms get worked 3 or 4 times a week while the back, legs, and shoulders are neglected. The result is an imbalanced physique that not only looks odd, but also creates structural problems over time because the stronger muscle groups begin pulling joints out of alignment. The second trap is the opposite, training everything every day with no clear structure, burning out the nervous system and the muscles simultaneously, making recovery impossible and progress painfully slow. A planned weekly split solves both of these problems at once. The week begins on Monday with a chest and tricep session. This is a classic pairing because the triceps function as a secondary muscle during almost every pressing movement you perform for the chest, which means they are already warmed up and partially activated by the time you move to direct tricep work. You start the session with the flat barbell bench press, which remains the single most effective movement for overall chest mass and strength. For sets of this exercise, working in a rep range of 8 to 12 will form the foundation of the workout. The key here is controlling the descent of the bar, taking 2 to 3 seconds to lower it toward the lower portion of the chest then dropping it down quickly and relying on the bounce to get it back up. That controlled lowering creates far more time under tension, which is one of the primary drivers of muscle growth. After the bench press, you move to the incline dumbbell press. This targets the upper portion of the chest, the area just below the collarbone, which tends to be underdeveloped in most lifters because flat pressing is heavily favored. 3 to 4 sets here with a moderate incline, around 30 degrees rather than 45. Keeps the emphasis on the upper chest rather than shifting it too far onto the front deltoid. Following that, cable crossovers or a pec deck machine brings the chest through a full range of motion and creates a strong contraction at the peak that free weights alone struggle to produce. This isolation work is done for higher reps, 12 to 15, to maximize the pump and ensure full muscular engagement. Tricep work then follows with pushdowns on a cable machine, overhead tricep extensions and close grip push-ups or dips to finish. The triceps are a 3-headed muscle, and covering them from multiple angles within a single session ensures all 3 heads receive sufficient stimulus. Tuesday shifts focus entirely to the back and biceps. This pairing works on the same principle as Monday. The biceps assist in every pulling movement you do for the back, so by the time you reach direct bicep work, they are already primed and activated. The session opens with deadlifts or rack pulls if you have any lower back fatigue from the previous day. The deadlift is one of the most complete exercises that exists, recruiting the entire posterior chain from the calves all the way up through the traps, and including it early in a back session when you are fresh enough. To load it properly makes a significant difference in the results it produces over time. For working sets in the 5 to 8 rep range is appropriate here because this is a strength-focused movement. From there you move into bent-over barbell rows, keeping the torso roughly parallel to the floor and pulling the bar toward the lower abdomen rather than the chest. This position targets the mid and lower portions of the lats, along with the rhomboids and rear delts, creating the thick, dense back development that separates a good physique from a great one. Pull-ups or lat pull-downs follow, and if you can do pull-ups with your own body weight for multiple sets of 8 or more, that is preferable because the additional stabilization demands of a free-hanging movement recruit more muscle than a machine-guided one. Seated cable rows finish the back work and the bicep exercises that close out the session. Dumbbell curls, hammer curls, and concentration curls hit the short head, the long head, and the brachialis respectively, giving you complete bicep development rather than just the peaked inner head that most people focus on exclusively. Wednesday is a deliberate rest day. Not a light day, Not an active recovery day unless you genuinely enjoy low-intensity movement like walking or swimming, but an actual rest day where you allow your body to do the repair work that training stimulates. Muscle does not grow during the workout. It grows in the hours and days afterward, when protein synthesis is elevated and tissue is being rebuilt, stronger than before. If you skip rest days or consistently undercut sleep, you interrupt this process and essentially cancel out a significant portion of the work you did in the gym. Wednesday is protected time for recovery, and treating it that way is not laziness, it is intelligence. Thursday returns you to the gym with a shoulder session that also incorporates trap work. The shoulders are arguably the most important muscle group for overall physique appearance, because they determine how wide you look from the front and how three-dimensional your upper body appears from any angle. They are also one of the most commonly injured areas in lifters who press heavy without sufficient warm-up and rotator cuff preparation. Before loading any overhead movement, spend 10 minutes warming up the shoulder joint specifically with band pull-aparts, external rotation work, and light lateral raises to wake up the smaller stabilizing muscles before asking the larger ones to move heavy weight. The main pressing movement for the session is the seated dumbbell overhead press, which allows each arm to work independently and prevents the stronger side from compensating for the weaker one, as often happens with a barbell. 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps, then lateral raises, which are the primary isolation exercise for the medial deltoid, the part of the shoulder that creates the width and capped appearance. These are done with light to moderate weight for high reps, 15 to 20, because the medial delt responds well to volume, and the risk of using too much weight here and turning the movement into a hip-swinging momentum exercise is very real. Front raises cover the anterior deltoid, though it is worth noting that the anterior head is heavily recruited during chest pressing, so it rarely needs as much direct work as the other heads. Rear delt work through reverse pec deck or bent-over dumbbell raises closes out the shoulder portion, and then barbell or dumbbell shrugs finish the session by targeting the trapezius, which gives the neck and upper back that full, powerful appearance. Friday is leg day, and this is where the greatest number of people in any gym fail their own program. Legs are difficult. They require more energy, more mental effort, more discomfort than any upper body session, and the delayed onset muscle soreness they produce is legendary. But the legs contain more than half of the body's total muscle mass, and neglecting them does not just create a visual imbalance. It also limits the hormonal response to training because large compound lower body movements like squats and deadlifts produce a significantly greater anabolic hormone release than any upper body exercise can generate. In other words, training legs properly makes your entire body grow better. The session starts with barbell back squats. This is non-negotiable. The squat is the king of lower body movements, the way the deadlift is the king of posterior chain movements. And together they form the foundation of any serious strength and physique program. 4 to 5 sets, working in the 6 to 10 rep range, with a depth that brings the thighs at least parallel to the floor. After squats, Romanian deadlifts hit the hamstrings through a long stretch, which is highly effective for hamstring hypertrophy and a welcome contrast to the quad-dominant demand of the squat. Leg press follows as a quad-focused accessory movement, and leg curls on a machine isolate the hamstrings further. Calf raises, both seated and standing, finish the session, targeting both the gastrocnemius and the soleus, because these two muscles respond differently to training and require different approaches to develop fully. Saturday is dedicated to arms and core. By this point in the week, you have already worked the biceps on Tuesday and the triceps on Monday. So this session functions as both a dedicated arm day and a finisher for those muscle groups. The additional volume drives further growth without the arms ever being worked in isolation, so frequently that recovery becomes an issue. Barbell curls open the bicep work, as the bilateral loading of a barbell allows you to move more total weight than dumbbells and creates strong overall bicep development. This is followed by incline dumbbell curls, which place the bicep in a stretched position at the bottom of the movement and are particularly effective for the long head. For triceps, skull crushers with a barbell or an easy bar are a highly effective mass builder, followed by cable pushdowns and overhead extensions. Core work closes the session with planks, hanging leg raises, and cable crunches. Focusing on both the superficial rectus abdominis, and the deeper, stabilizing muscles that protect the spine during heavy compound lifting. Sunday is the second full rest day of the week. 2 rest days spread across the 7-day cycle, Wednesday and Sunday. It gives the body adequate recovery between the heaviest sessions. If you feel particularly good on a Sunday and genuinely want to move, a 20 to 30-minute walk or a stretching session focused on hip flexors, hamstrings, and thoracic spine mobility is beneficial without adding any meaningful recovery cost. Flexibility and mobility work done consistently over months reduces injury risk substantially and improves the quality of movement in every exercise you perform during the week. A few principles apply across the entire program regardless of which day it is. Progressive overload is the most fundamental of these. The body adapts to the demands placed on it, which means that doing the same thing week after week will produce results initially and then plateau completely. You need to give your muscles a reason to keep growing, and that reason is increasing demand. This does not always mean adding weight to the bar, though that is the most straightforward method. It can also mean adding an additional rep to a set, reducing rest time between sets, improving the quality of movement by slowing down the eccentric phase, or adding a set to a given exercise. What matters is that something is slightly harder each week than it was the week before. Nutrition is the second pillar that holds the entire program up. Training creates the stimulus for change. Food provides the raw material for that change to actually occur. Protein intake needs to be sufficient to support muscle repair and growth, which for someone training this consistently means roughly 1 gram per pound of body weight per day, though the exact number varies with individual factors. Carbohydrates are the primary fuel source for the kind of high-intensity resistance training this program demands. And chronically undereating carbohydrates while training hard leads to flat, poor-quality workouts and stalled progress. Fats support hormonal health and joint lubrication, and should not be cut below a certain threshold regardless of body composition goals. Eating enough, and eating enough of the right things, is not optional for this program to work. Sleep is the third pillar. Most of the hormonal processes that support muscle growth, particularly growth hormone release, occur during deep sleep. Getting less than 7 hours per night consistently is enough to measurably impair both performance in the gym and the rate at which your body recovers and grows between sessions. This is not a minor consideration. Sleep deprivation is one of the most common and least acknowledged reasons why dedicated, consistent gym goers fail to make progress despite putting in genuine effort. Hydration, while less discussed, matters more than most people realize. Even mild dehydration reduces muscular strength and endurance, impairs concentration, and slows recovery. Drinking enough water throughout the day, not just during training, keeps performance and recovery running at full capacity. The program as a whole is designed around the concept of symmetrical development, which means every muscle group gets its moment of primary focus, and no single area is systematically neglected week after week. Over months and years of following this structure, the body develops in a proportionate and balanced way that not only looks better, but functions better, moves better, and holds up to the demands of both training and every day life far more reliably than a physique built on imbalance and favoritism toward the fun muscle groups. Consistency over perfection is the final principle worth emphasizing. Missing a day occasionally will not destroy your progress. Training through a minor illness, however, or pushing through a joint that is sending genuine warning signals of injury rather than the ordinary discomfort of hard training, very well might. The goal is to complete the vast majority of sessions over a period of months and years, and to do so in a way that keeps the body healthy enough to keep showing up. That longevity, that sustained commitment to the process over a long timeline, is what separates the people whose physiques actually transform from those who train hard for 2 months, get injured or burned out, and start from scratch every 6 months. This program, followed with patience and consistency, will produce results that reflect exactly the effort invested in it.